Hi, my name is Dr. Jeff Borden. I am the Chief Academic Officer here at campus, and we're going to walk through why you might choose to use groups as a community device or a community vehicle in the campus system. This is a first of three-part series. We're going to talk about why you might use groups in the first video, how to actually build a group with the clicks and actions in the second video. And then third, we're going to talk about how you can manage a group with some of the most effective practices that we have seen. So with that said, let's get into why. So just as a quick reminder, group information doesn't just appear in the groups area of your campus instance. Conversations that take place in this group area will show up in your activity feed. Now, it's important to remember that you will only see elements that you're supposed to see. In other words, if you're in a group, the conversations taking place in that group will show up here. If an administrator in a group, that is the manager of the group or the overseer of the group, if they have actually posted something, it will not only show up inside of your activity feed, it will also show up inside of your notifications area. Not all conversations show up in notifications, just those posted by an administrator. That effectively takes the administrator's conversation elements and turns them into announcements. That's how you can be sure that people are going to be seeing your stuff, not just in the activity feed, not just in the group area, but also in that notifications area, and that's important. The one other thing I'd like to mention before I actually go into the groups themselves is that groups are easy to find. We're going to talk about some ways to make them even easier to find through search, but a lot of people go through search rather than looking down the menu. So for example, if I wanted to seek out the career services organization, I just start to type the word career and up pops anything with career in it, which includes the career services group. In fact, if I look at all results, I can look at just the groups that have the word career in them. And then I can, of course, go there and I can begin to do some things. So when it comes to groups in the campus system, groups really are a very significant differentiator with this system from most portals. Most portals just have connections and links to tools. And sometimes they'll also include some content, maybe newsletters, agendas, forms, those sorts of things. But campus adds in the community concept front and center, intermixed with everything else, which really then allows for community to develop in a much richer and more impressive way when you start to look at all of the reasons that students start to come here. People start to use this tool not just for the access to their courses or access to the payroll system, those sorts of tools, not just for pages of content, and not even just for things like connection to their email or their calendars. They also start to come here to participate and, importantly, to view conversations that are taking place in groups. Now, it's important to realize that groups are typically auto-filled, meaning a person has certain attributes associated with them. I'm a professor, I'm a student, I'm an employee, I'm a staff, I'm at risk, I'm in the military. Based on some or all or any of those sorts of attributes, you can automatically put people into certain groups. You can require that they be in those groups. Right now, during this pandemic time, most of our schools have created a COVID-19 town hall or a coronavirus group, something like that. A one-stop shop to talk about all the things that are pertinent to the school experience during this time. That means that everyone is automatically put into this group. And much of the time, they're required to be there. They cannot unjoin or leave the group. Similarly, most schools use an all group, like all students, all staff, all faculty, all employees. And when they do that, they make sure that that group is automatically placed in the way of those particular constituents. In other words, all students are automatically enrolled in this all students group. Now, the groups themselves provide a wealth of information that is really nice, not just in the web form, but especially on your phone as well. because students, faculty, staff, whomever can get into that group and they can begin to find information about things for that group. They can look to see if there's any events upcoming, if there are any resources that have been added that they really need to use or leverage. And it's really quite powerful. But beyond the all groups context, most schools, not all, but most schools really like to include departments as one of the group types that they launch out of the gate. Often those are academic departments. So in other words, all students in the psychology department may automatically be enrolled in this psychology group. So now you have an easy way to communicate with all majors and potentially even all minors if you want to include them as well. In this case, we've got a nursing group, same thing. Nursing majors, nursing minors might be automatically added here. Nursing faculty might also be added here. At that point, the administrator of the group is quite often the administrator for the department. Someone who wants to be able to communicate announcements, information, updates with people along the way. Now, what's nice is in all of these groups, you can really create as many or as few administrators as you would like to. It could be one person, it could be 5 people, it could be a group of people. So in some departments, they will have all of the chairs, the administrator for the group, and the dean all be group admins in that group. As soon as you become a group admin, again, you have the ability to make posts to people that will automatically become announcements. You could begin to do that. Similarly, you can have groups that are run by staff, by faculty. Even students can begin to create some different kinds of groups. They could create a group for mentors. They could create study groups. They can create all manner of groups. Now, system administrators have access to see everything. But within a group, you can make those groups private. You can make them public. One good example of this might be a faculty senate group. Some of our schools utilize the campus system to create a group of faculty senators. Only faculty senators can find this group. Only faculty senators are invited to this group. And so once they're in here, they can begin to, again, share resources that are eyes-only kinds of resources. Things like promotion and tenure documentation or university policies that they're voting on or discussing. What's nice about having a group like this is that after the meetings, which inevitably run short, those constituents can come in here and start to ask each other, hey, we were just talking about this in the meeting. I'd like to further the conversation. I'd like to take a poll of my peers and see, do you really like choice 1 or do you really like choice 2? Things like that. So you can create private groups that no one can find in search and that do not show up to anyone in their menu unless they happen to be in that group. Similarly, here is a faculty group that is for all faculty. Now, students can't find this, but faculty can. This is a public group that can be joined by a faculty member, and they can begin to come in here and do research with one another, interdisciplinary or cross-discipline research, perhaps, with other folks that are in this particular experience. The entire group system really works that way. You can certainly invite people to your groups ad hoc. That is possible in any group. You can come in here into group members and you can invite people individually if you would like to. That's often how students will do it with study groups and those sorts of things. But you often, much more often, see group members auto-populated here because of certain attributes associated with that group member coming between the feed from the student information system and campus. So as we start to think about how you're going to use groups, leverage groups, keep in mind that there are all kinds of purposes that you can use groups for to essentially further the conversation, really create the digital version of your campus. One very good example of that, I think, is found in this employees category with a human resources group. Now, human resources groups often will have resources that are very important for everybody. Faculty handbooks, student handbooks, those sorts of things. Perhaps they will share events with people if they're getting ready to create some sort of specific activity or event for people. But the human resources group in the employees category sometimes mimics or mirrors the employees category of pages. So in this case, we've got an employees area of pages that talks about things like when payroll will take place. So again, these pages can be put into employees menus, just like this group can be added to employees menus. So now you can start to see the power as you start to see that folks are given information when they need it and where they need it, rather than seeing a list of everything that's possibly available. That paradox of choice doesn't start to take place here. Now they're starting to see just the things that they really need. They're adding things to their menu that are really just for them. Now, as I say all of this, one of the big concerns that we hear quite often from staff, especially staff, but also sometimes from other employees is, wait a minute, if people can communicate with me here, does this mean that I have to monitor these pages all the time? And the answer is no, and let me give you a couple of reasons why that is the case. So for example, when I implemented this platform at a university, when we talked to staff in the department said, wait a minute, I answer emails all day long. I don't want to have to also check this place when people are communicating here. Now, I want to tell you that by the end of the first semester, most staff were checking this page before they check their email. Why? Because here you can see a question asked by someone and you can answer it once. And then everybody can see the question and everyone can also see the answer. At the same time, students often get in here and help other students very quickly. When a student will post something like, I don't know where this form is, or I'm not sure what to do about this book, or what should I do in terms of contacting this professor? Quite often, students will help other students because they've had that experience. And so there's a little bit of weight taken off of the shoulders of those who traditionally answer questions on the staff level. But more relevant than that, please note that this discussion area here does not have to be two-way communication. It can be unidirectional communication. In other words, if I come into my settings, if again, I'm an administrator of a group, I can do this, and I look at the advanced settings, notice that I can change who is allowed to post here, who can add to the discussion, who can comment on a post that's been made. I could literally make it so that only administrators of this group can do the posting. By doing that, I have taken this channel and I have turned it into a one-directional communication channel from the group administrator to all the members of that group. So again, it will show up in their activity feed, it will show up in their notifications, it will of course show up in the group itself, but at that point, I don't have to worry about answering questions that are coming in from students, staff, or whoever the members of that group happen to be. That said, we at campus would certainly recommend that you consider having two-directional communication. And there's two other tools that I want to share with you that really make it so, again, you don't have to constantly monitor these pages. So after assuming that we're going to make this a two-directional conversation, in other words, that students will have the ability to come in here and make posts, ask questions, things like that. The first thing that you should note is that we have the ability at campus to ingest your FAQs. So if I were to come in here and start to type a frequently asked question, what is financial assistance? I don't even have to finish it, the FAQ pops up. So we have ingested this frequently asked question. If I click on this, I can immediately see the response. I can see the answer, the formal university or department answer. So now I don't even have to finish that post potentially. Now in this answer, you could put links to people, you could put links to websites, you could put links to a department page, you can do other things as well. But now I can see the answer. Now that's pretty helpful, but it's not even as powerful as the next thing I'd like to share with you. Not only can we ingest your frequently asked questions, but we also have the ability to look for and monitor. In fact, we are always monitoring the system for everything, but that includes for words and phrases. So if a student were to come in and say, I can't register, if you had that set up as a keyword or a key phrase that you were monitoring for, and let me go up and show you what that begins to look like. I can actually take keywords and I can have them be monitored and sent as information to other people. There's actually a couple of places and ways that I can do this. I can do this in the Administration Center and the Administration Plus Center. But in terms of keyword monitoring, we're monitoring the system all the time for all kinds of words. And the different kinds of words can, again, be notifications to certain people to tell them that things have happened. You can look for certain pragmatic words. You can look for certain kinds of words that are around help or around assistance, as well as things that may be inappropriate. Now, again, because this is not really an anonymous system, students rarely do post inappropriate things here. That's not really the key purpose for this. When I implemented this at a university, we started to use this with the registrar's office. And the registrar's office would get a notification from a student that posted something like, I can't register. There were a couple of people who shared an office and they would say, oh, I'll take this one. They would look at the posting and then determine if they could help immediately, in real time. They could potentially come in and comment back. They could start a private message with that student and have a conversation that way. They could simply say, call my office or come by my office. And they could begin to help people in real time based on needs that were happening. Well, as that really spread around the campus, it spread like wildfire because the librarians started saying, I would like to be notified if anybody posts research project or research paper. Why? Because our students didn't know that we had resource librarians. They didn't even know that they existed. And so when that phrase was posted, the resource librarians would be notified and they could, again, read it and determine if it was appropriate to step in and say, hey, I just noticed that you posted something about a research project. I can help you. I work in the library and this is my job. The counseling department started to get involved. They said, can we look for words that suggest depression or, heaven forbid, suicidal ideation? And again, start to get in front of students in ways that we had never had access to previously. Because we allowed for communication to happen in so many of these different channels, the appropriate student posting in the right spot got to the right person through these monitors. And it made so that people did not have to constantly be in the system looking around, but over time, they found themselves here more and more. Again, because they didn't have the one-to-one set of email, knowing that they were going to have to respond to that same email question 25 different times through email, and that they could now respond to it once here. But also because they were being alerted to things in real time that needed attention that they had never really had access to before. And by doing that, we found that we were able to help with student success, with retention efforts, with all sorts of other things in terms of support for students, faculty, and staff all along the way. So as you can see, there are a lot of different ways that you can begin to utilize these aspects of groups. There are things you can do for employees. You can have things for newbies to come in, and especially again, during this time with COVID-19, as more schools are doing things online and at a distance, these groups really do become a tether so that people don't feel like they're drifting alone, but they're connected, they're close. They can come and see the things that are relevant, that matter. You can automatically provision people so that as soon as a student reaches maybe senior status, they're automatically put into career services. As soon as a faculty member becomes tenured, maybe you've got a group for just tenured faculty. There's all number of ways that you can begin to group your people on your campus so that they begin to use these elements appropriately. Now, what I've just shown you is a showcasing. It's just an envisioning, sort of the art of the possible. I hope that you can see how this is used by faculty in some contexts, by staff in some contexts, by students in some contexts. One of my very favorite groups is a replication in this environment of something that I did when I was at the university I was teaching at. I was the disc golf sponsor. The disc golf team said that they wanted to create a disc golf group, and so they did. The two captains of the team were the administrators of this group, and they were able to come in here and talk with other people about ways that they were going out with tournaments. When they would practice, they would invite people to come with them. It was really a very effective use of this exact tool to generate community around things that matter to students. It wasn't just saying, join a learning community, knowing that about 60 to 70% of students won't do that. It was saying, join a community of people that you like, that are interested in things you're interested in, or create your own and allow other people to join that with you. So I hope that you can see faculty, staff, students, employees, administrators, people really can begin to build out quite powerful group experiences here. And as that is sort of washing over you and you're thinking about that for a little bit of time, before you go into the video about how to build a group, I also do want to mention that we've got some tools for you, some resources, some assets. So if you have been working with an implementation team on your campus, please know that they have access to all of these assets. If you don't have these assets, contact your partner service or partner success lead and they will get them for you. But some of the assets include a slide deck that really shows a bunch of best practices associated with groups. And it also shows a bunch of the examples I've already shown you here. So here's a department group, for example. Here's a mentoring group, for example. Here's a group with faculty senators. Here's one with a specific location for a campus. One really positive and powerful example of this are groups that are created for advisors, where all their advisees are in a group, and then they can have conversations with all of their advisees at one time. If they want to choose to go into something more private, of course, as I showed you before, they can certainly come up and have chats or phone calls or bring them to their office. But there's a lot of those examples showing up in this examples slide deck. At the same time, we have some change management documentation that talks about how to get people to upgrade, how to get people to really come into these environments, to use these things more, to begin to pay more attention. So again, there's a healthy number of students that when they really come into the system, their initial response is just to come in, look at some of the widgets and look at some of the tools. But over time, you'll see that students will start to watch the conversations that are taking place here. While you likely will not get more social experiences than the Facebooks of the world, the Twitters of the world, there's usually only between 9 and 12% of people who actually participate regularly. You will start to see a lot of people who watch. And those lurkers, as they're called in social media circles, it's impressive to see when you start to see numbers like 45%, 50%, 60% of students, especially students, but also staff and faculty, who are going into group pages to see what's going on, just to see the conversation because something caught their eye. Probably a conversation in their activity feed sent them into a group and they decided, I want to see what's going on there. I have that question, or maybe I can answer that question. You'll see people who perform one-off conversations quite a bit. But this really starts to become a very holistic experience for students that not only drives them to the tools that they need, to practical, pragmatic information around their email or their calendars, but also to start to connect them back to the departments, to other students, to other people. And this change management documentation will help you start to push those sorts of things out to your constituents. Along the way, we also will have some ideas for ambassador programs, things that I really am a big believer in. Again, your partner success lead can help you with some of these things. And there's also even some communication templates that you will be given that you have access to. So you can start to see how to get more adoption and or utilize email forms, stuff like that. I hope that this was a really insightful and interesting look into the world of groups inside of campus. This again was the art of the possible. Video 2, which will be after this one, will be how to actually build a group and how to consider elements of information, elements of discussion, elements around resources and events, and we'll talk about that then. I hope that you enjoyed this. Good luck and good learning.